Cesar Trejo's Knuckles by Maceo Montoya. I do drywall. I do a lot of side jobs, under the table stuff. It was on one of these side jobs that I became an investigator. I call it that because I don't have any other name for it. In my mind, you see, there was a mystery, something I couldn't understand, and I had to get to the bottom of it. It started when my friend Julio, who owns Zitio's bar, called and told me that some drunk had put a hole in the bathroom wall. Could I fix it? Of course, I told him. So I went over, inspected the damage, and gave him an estimate. We had a beer and talked about our upcoming fantasy football draft picks. That weekend I patched the hole, mudded and sanded it, then painted it. You couldn't even tell there had been a hole. A few weeks went by, and Julio called again to tell me that some jackass had punched several holes in the wall. Could I come back? Of course, I told him. This time, though, I didn't think it was just one person punching holes in the wall. What do you mean? How can you tell? Julio asked. I told him that I just couldn't imagine someone's fist standing up to the impact. There'd have to be blood. Maybe the guy's fist is made of steel, I said, but his skin can't be. Julio nodded, but he didn't care if it was one guy or 10. He just wanted it fixed. So I fixed it, taking extra care to make sure the seams didn't show. I thought that if you wanted to punch a hole in the wall, you'd probably look to punch through a patch rather than the drywall itself. But then I thought, if you're drunk, you're really not paying attention to anything. And I was just wasting my time. A few weeks later, Julio asked me to come by again. I showed up on Friday afternoon, and this time there were just 2 holes, but one of them looked like a boot had made it. Look, Julio told me, is there anything you can do to reinforce the wall? I'm getting tired of this. I told him I could get thicker drywall, but unless I did the whole wall, there'd be a slope. I could even it out as best I could, but there'd still be a slope. He told me, it's the bathroom at a bar, man. I couldn't give a shit. I just don't want any more holes. So I put the thicker 5/8 drywall, taped and mudded it, sanded it, painted it, and all the while I was painting, I kept wondering to myself, if other bars in town had the same problem, I could make a business out of it. Offer double reinforced walls for bathrooms. I got so excited about the idea that right after finishing it, I went to Kenny's bar a few blocks over and spoke to the owner, whose name I can't remember, but it wasn't Kenny. I started right in, just told him I could reinforce his bathroom walls for a good price. Why the hell would I need that, he asked. For all the holes drunks punch in the wall, I said. He looked at me real strange. It happened once, he said, a long time ago, but it doesn't happen often enough for me to redo the whole bathroom. I thanked him for his time and wondered how his bar was lucky enough to attract the peaceful drunks. So I went to Antler's Lounge, then Old Joe's, and finally to Lucky's Corner, but I received the same response. They didn't have a problem with holes punched in the walls. I started to wonder how it was that Julio's bar attracted this aggressive drunks. That night, I went back to Zitio's bar and got drunk myself. I went partly because I wanted to see if I needed to give the wall a second coat of paint. I also went because I was curious to see what the place was like on a Saturday night. I watched the bathroom door, which opened up to the dance floor. Awkward placement, if you ask me, because every time the door swung open, you could see 2 dudes taking a piss. I sat at a table in the corner, just thinking and wondering, never taking my eyes off the bathroom door. I must have looked strange staring at the bathroom all night. People probably thought I liked looking at guys pissing. Who'd think I just cared about the drywall? After a while, I had to take a piss. I stood in front of the urinal and stared at the freshly painted wall. I thought, I have no desire whatsoever to punch my hand through the wall. Who does? Who stands here and thinks, as soon as I'm done pissing, I'm going to punch a hole in this shit? I couldn't figure it out. Maybe if some guy were heartbroken, he'd be upset enough, especially if he was liquored up on hard alcohol. But could there be that many heartbroken guys at this bar? There must be just as many at other bars in town, but they weren't punching holes. I left the bathroom and went for another beer. I didn't need another one, but I also didn't want to go home. And looking at the other people in the bar, something struck me that I hadn't considered before. And I hadn't considered it because it was so obvious. We were all Mexican. There were 1 or 2 white guys in the far room and a fat blonde girl with her tits hanging out at the bar. But other than that, every face was brown. Was that the difference between this bar and the others? Were we all just a bunch of fucking machos with too much testosterone? I looked around. People were laughing, talking, drinking. Some played pool or darts, others danced. Everyone looked happy. I looked for an angry face, a face ready to punch something. There were none. Maybe just not tonight, I thought. I drank my beer and left. 2 weeks later, Julio called again. They put a hole in the 5/8, I asked. Not a hole, he said, but they smashed it good. Dumb fuck probably broke his hand on it, but the wall still looks bad. For now, just clean it up. But if it happens again, we'll need something even stronger. I could put the studs closer together, I said, but I'd have to tear everything out. Maybe later, he told me. Like I said, just patch it up before tonight if you can, and we'll see. So I patched it up, and while I was working, I thought of a plan. This time I didn't paint it. I left a good coat of mud, a thick coat that wouldn't dry completely for at least a day. That night, I went back to the bar, sat in my corner, nursed a beer, and waited. But the longer I waited, the more I started thinking my plan was stupid. I'd been thinking that if someone punched the wall, the wet mud would leave a trace on his hand. That's if he didn't notice and decided to wash it off. Somehow, wall punching and hand washing didn't seem to go together. But as the bar filled up and the dance floor did as well, and the strobe light got going, I realized that from my corner, I wouldn't be able to see the mud on someone even if he dumped his hand in a slosh bucket. So I left my seat and walked toward the bathroom. There was a bar stool close to the bathroom door, but you had to be playing one of those electronic games to sit there. I decided it'd give me good cover. I played poker, then one where they had two photos side by side and you had to find what was different about each one, but I wasn't really paying attention. I was trying to listen over the DJ's bass and inspect the hands of everyone who had left the bathroom. After about half an hour, I heard a thump. There may have been others, but this one happened just as the song paused for a second before revving up again. I lunged for the bathroom door and opened it to find a guy staring at his knuckles, which were smeared with mud. I locked the door behind me. "You punching the wall?" I asked. Maybe I should have been more careful, but I'm a big guy. I can take care of myself. Plus, this kid didn't look tough. He looked up at me, not really able to focus on anything. "What the fuck is this shit?" he asked, showing me his hands. "That's joint compound, you idiot. Now what are you doing punching the wall?" I thought of telling him that I was going to throw him out or something, but I wasn't there as a bouncer. I repeated my question. "What, this wall?" he asked. "Yeah, that wall. Why are you punching it?" "I didn't punch no wall," he said, still staring at his hand. "Yes, you did. That's why you got mud all over your knuckles." Now he looked at the wall, as if it were something very strange and confusing. "Man, I don't even know what you're talking about," he said. He was too drunk to get anything out of, but I did learn one thing. There were probably more people punching walls than the number of holes. I don't know why I hadn't thought about that, but it made sense. It's possible for a guy to punch hard enough to break through standard 1/2 inch drywall, but it'd be hard to punch an outright hole in the 5/8 drywall. Over the course of the night, though, after enough blows to weaken the wall, someone could come in and bust a hole with one punch. Anyway, I let the kid go, and by the time I went back to my stool, someone was playing a game on the electronic screen. So I waited by the bathroom door, not caring if anyone wondered what the hell I was doing, and just listened. In the next few hours, I heard 5 more thumps, and each time I burst into the bathroom to confront the puncher, and each time it was denied. Denied as though they truly didn't have any idea what I was talking about, even with the traces of mud on their knuckles. Finally, I got fed up. I wanted a reason. That was it. Just one reason why someone would punch a goddamn wall. Finally, I heard another punch, followed by, "Oh shit!" This time, the guy couldn't deny it. His hand was still stuck in the wall. He turned to me, his eyes wide with surprise. "Look at this," he said. I locked the door behind me. "Yeah, look at it," I said. "Now you want to tell me why you punched it?" He removed his hand from the wall, opening and closing his fist. He'd hurt himself. "Damn," he said. "I didn't even punch it that hard." "I don't care how hard you punched it. I just want to know why you did it." "Did what?" "Punched the wall." "What do you mean, why I punched the wall?" "Exactly, fool. Why? Standing here, did you decide to punch that wall?" "Man, I don't know. I just did." "You just did? Does that make any sense to you? After you take a piss and before you wash your hands, you punch a wall? Now think about it. Why did you punch the wall?" "Man, let me go. Move out of the way." No, because I'm the one who has to fix the drywall when drunk asses like you decide to act stupid. Now either give me one reason why you punched it, or I'm going to tell Julio right now and let him know that we've caught the dumb fuck who's caused him $500 in damage. The guy sighed. If he was drunk before, he was sobering up now. He shrugged. Man, I swear, I don't even know why I did it. Not good enough, I said. He was quiet for a moment, and I could tell he was thinking. I guess I was just taking a piss and I don't know. I just felt like this feeling of being mad. Mad at what? At your girlfriend? Your dad? Your friends? If you're mad, you gotta be mad at something. What are you, some kind of psychiatrist? No, I just want an answer, damn it. I can't give you one other than that. I wasn't mad at anything, man. I just wanted to punch something, that's it. Something told me that was all I was going to get. There was knocking on the door. Let me in! A voice cried, hurry, I gotta hella take a piss. I unlocked the door and let the fucker leave. I followed him out. The guy waiting to take a piss almost lunged past me, unbuckling his pants as he did so. That night I couldn't sleep. I was bothered by what had happened. I knew the guy was telling the truth, and if those other idiots admitted to punching the wall, they probably would have told me the same thing. They punched it because they were mad, but what they were mad at, they probably couldn't say. I've always been even-tempered. I get angry, but nothing ever bothers me enough to catch me off guard, make me react in a way I regret later. All my brothers have tempers, my dad too. I remember once my brother couldn't get the television remote to work, and instead of getting new batteries, he just threw the remote at the television screen, breaking the remote and cracking the screen. Another time, my oldest brother couldn't get cell phone reception and threw the phone against the wall, smashing it to pieces. Both times, everyone told them to calm down, but we never asked, why did you do that? That made no sense what you just did. No sense at all. Let's talk it out, damn it. I guess you just assume some people got tempers. Some people got things on their mind. Things bothering them that make them take hold all of a sudden and ask why they threw the remote or cell phone. It was asking why they threw the remote or the cell phone was like asking them the meaning of life. The next week, I ripped apart the bathroom at Zito's. I put in studs every 8 inches rather than every 16. And then over the studs, I put a metal sheet. And then over the metal sheet, I put 2 panels of 5/8 drywall. You'd have had to have been Mike Tyson to punch through this. But I guess it didn't surprise me when several months later, Julio called me and told me that someone had damaged the wall. We caught him though, he said. He agreed to pay for the damage. It's not a hole, it's like a dent. Just put some plaster over it, it'll be fine. So that's what I did. Spackled the indentation, sanded it down, then painted over it. When I was done, I asked Julio what the guy's name was. Who? Julio asked, as if he'd forgotten why I was at the bar in the first place. The guy who punched the wall. Oh, Cesar Trejo, he said. What is he, a boxer or something? I asked. He shook his head. No, just pissed off at the world, Julio said. He was in Iraq, came back, fucked up. Is he big? I asked. Stocky, Julio said. Not that big though. I thought a lot about the dent, which wasn't really a dent at all. It was the impression of the guy's knuckles, like his signature. Like when people write their names in cement or carve their initials in a tree, a way of leaving your mark. And here, I'd gone and patched it up, erased it. I told the guys at work about it. Told them about the double studs, the metal sheet, the 2 panels of 5/8 drywall. I told them about the knuckles. Most didn't believe me. Those who did thought that maybe it was the metal sheet that crumpled rather than cracked, allowing for the impression. Most likely that's what happened. Either way, he'd hit it hard. It was some time before I saw Julio again. I asked him about the bathroom walls. He told me that he hadn't had any problems since. I made some joke about not letting the guy who dented it back into the bar. He looked at me as if he didn't know what I was talking about. You know, I said, the guy who left his damn knuckles in the wall. The expression on his face changed. He told me that Cesar Trejo had killed himself. I don't know why I went. Or I couldn't stop thinking about the knuckles in the wall. But I don't know why I couldn't stop thinking about them. I don't know how the idea entered my head that I would feel better if I found out who this Cesar Trejo guy was. Or not even feel better, but just forget the damn knuckles. I asked Julio where Cesar's parents lived. I thought he'd ask me why, but he didn't. He just asked some other guy at the bar, and the guy drew a map of how to get there. The next day I went and found the place easy enough. There was a stained wood sign on the porch that said the Trejos. I rang the doorbell, and an older man with a graying mustache answered. "Mr. Trejo?" I asked. He didn't ask me what I wanted or anything, just opened the door and invited me in. He told me he was just about to sit down for coffee and asked if I wanted some too. I said yes, and he called to his wife in the other room to make it. She came out and asked how I liked my coffee. I told her with sugar and cream, and she set both in front of me, then poured herself a cup and sat down at the table with us. It was only then that Cesar's father asked what they could do for me. I didn't know where to begin, so I started with the truth, which was that I put up drywall for a living. I talked about the holes in the bathroom at my friend Julio's bar. Then I jumped to the part about the knuckles left in the wall and how I couldn't stop thinking about them. I was going on and on, but I couldn't stop myself, even when I started describing shit that didn't matter, like how I had reinforced the wall. Actually, Cesar's father was interested in that. He even asked if I tried using plywood, and we could have easily kept going because he clearly liked talking construction. But then Cesar's mother began to cry. "Why are you crying?" Mr. Trejo asked his wife. Mrs. Trejo wiped her eyes with her apron and shook her head. "Nothing. It's just hard sometimes to see Cesar's friends and for Cesar not to be around." I felt bad then. That's probably why they invited me in. I hesitated, but told them anyway. "You know, I didn't actually know Cesar," I said. "You didn't?" his father asked. "You look familiar. You've never been here before?" "No, I haven't," I said. He asked if I knew any of his other children. I told him I didn't. Now he grew suspicious. I think if it had been just the two of us, it wouldn't have mattered, but because his wife had started to cry, it made the situation more awkward. His voice was less friendly now. "So then, what do you want?" "I want to know who it was that punched that wall so hard." I think they thought I was trying to find out who was at fault, because Mr. Trejo asked, "You want us to pay for damage that our dead son may or may not have committed months ago? Who even told you it was him?" No, that's not what I meant," I said quickly. "Cesar already paid for it to be fixed a long time ago, and I already fixed it. Like I said, I do drywall. I just wanted somehow, I guess, to learn more about Cesar, like who he was, what kind of person, because I can't stop thinking about, his knuckles in the plaster." They looked at me like I was crazy. Mrs. Trejo started to cry again. "He came back from Iraq, very angry, very confused," Mr. Trejo said. His parents gave me several names and numbers. Some were friends, others siblings. They also gave me Cesar's ex-girlfriend's number. They told me that she would be good to talk to. Her name was Marie. After talking to them, I felt bad, which I should have expected. How else was I going to feel talking to parents about their dead son? I thought maybe I should stop this investigation, but I still wanted to know more about Cesar. His mom and dad talked about him as if he were an angel. He'd gotten in trouble, sure, but what kid doesn't, they told me. It was Iraq that changed him. Everything before was heaven, everything after was hell. Maybe I should have called one of his brothers first, but that night I kept looking at the names and the phone numbers they'd given me, and Marie's name stood out from all the rest. When she'd answered, her voice surprised me. It was chirpy, spunky, bubbly maybe. I expected her to sound depressed. The cheerfulness caught me off guard, and as I explained the reason for my phone call, I knew I wasn't making any sense. She kept saying, wait a second, what?" I did my best to describe the drywall and the knuckle impression in the wall, but the truth is, I don't know what I said. Finally, I shut up, and Marie was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I don't understand what you're talking about. You weren't friends, were you?" "No," I said. "I didn't know him. Maybe it seems strange. Who can explain why certain things stick with you? I just need to know who those knuckles belong to." She was quiet on the other line, and I thought maybe she was thinking about what I'd said, like I had touched some nerve. But then I could hear her muffled voice telling someone to leave the room, and that she'd be out in a minute. Finally, she asked, "Do you want to meet me for a drink or something?" I didn't know what to say. I liked her voice. I was curious to know what she looked like. But I didn't think she would come right out and ask me if I wanted to grab a drink. I decided it was fine. I had called to talk to her, and it might as well be in person. We met at Julio's bar. She was tiny, probably not even 5 foot. Her black hair was pulled back tight, and she had mousy ears. She had this strange smile on her face, like we were doing something we shouldn't be doing. We talked for a while about random things, nothing I can remember. We got our drinks, and then, without me even asking, she started talking. Her voice didn't change, it stayed cheerful, like she was talking about her plans for the weekend or something. Right after Cesar got home, I went to his house and spoke to his mom, she said. She told me he hadn't left his room for 3 days straight. I thought maybe I could help, and so I walked with her to Cesar's room, and she whispered loudly, "May God bless you. You are the best thing that ever happened to him." It made me feel guilty. No one knew we had broken up before his last tour. She knocked on the door and we waited, but nothing. So his mother said through the door, "It's Marie," and still nothing. So I say, "It's me, Cesar," and he says, "I don't want to talk to that bitch," just like that. I remember his mom moaned and covered her face with her apron. I just placed my arm around her and she kept saying sorry over and over. She couldn't understand what had happened to him. I told her that he would be fine, he just needed some time, and I think this made her feel better. But I don't think I believed it myself. "Why?" I asked. "Look, I'll show you something." She pulled out a shiny pink book from her purse. He had already taken off, but he was still in the country. So one night I shut off my phone for some reason, and I missed his text messages. When I woke up in the morning, there were 19 of them waiting for me. I wrote them in this diary thing I keep. I don't even know why. I guess so that I wouldn't forget how scared they made me feel. I loved him. I missed him. I wanted to be with him. We'd been together since we were 15. "Here," she said, handing me the book. I don't even want to look at the page. I read them. They were the texts of a crazed man, or maybe just a heartbroken kid. A lot of fuck yous and bitches and accusations followed by apologies. I'd texted messages like those before, just not 19 of them. The only one that stuck with me was the last. He wrote, "Just tell me you're happy without me, and I'll leave you alone forever." I sent one back, Marie said. I just said, "I love you. You're my best friend, but I'm afraid of you." We were quiet for a minute, then Marie asked me, "Tell me again, why do you want to know all this about Cesar?" I was looking at my beer, at the shiny pink book in front of me, at Sammy behind the bar. I was trying to look at anything but Marie. Finally, I turned to her, and she was staring right at me, like she'd been looking at the side of my face the entire time. I shrugged my shoulders. I didn't know why I was doing this anymore. She kept looking at me. She looked sad now, but I didn't think she was sad about Cesar. Maybe it's just what I wanted to think. She turned her legs toward me. Our stools were close together. I placed my hand on her leg. That night, Marie came back to my apartment. We drank some more, we smoked some weed, then we had sex. She got up, and without putting on any clothes, she went to the bathroom. I heard her raise the lid of the toilet. Then she started to pee, and for some reason, listening to the trickle of her piss hit the water, I realized what I'd done, and I didn't feel good about it. Until that moment, it had all been some dream, some drunken hookup forgotten the next day. I had met up with a pretty girl, and one thing led to another. That's what had happened. Maybe it was what led up to it that bothered me. How did I go from investigating holes in the wall to this? When she came out of the bathroom, the light hit my face, and she must have noticed that something was wrong. She asked if I was okay. I told her yeah, but I don't think she believed me. After a long silence, she asked, "How did we end up here?" "I know," I said. "I was asking myself the same thing." "You know who you should talk to?" she said. "His brother, Freddie. They were living together when Cesar's parents kicked him out of the house. I heard that right before Cesar killed himself, he pointed the gun at Freddie's head and made him get down on his knees and beg for his life. So Freddie did. Then Cesar asked him if he really thought he'd shoot his own brother. Freddie couldn't answer because he was sobbing so hard. Finally, Cesar went into his room, and that was when Freddie heard the gun go off." "Crazy," I said, but I'd stopped listening. I didn't want to think about Cesar Trejo anymore. I just wanted to fall asleep and for morning to come, and for Marie to leave. "Yeah, crazy," she said sleepily. She yawned and then kissed me and placed her warm body against mine. She quickly fell asleep in my arms. She was on top of me. I couldn't believe how tiny she was. Her breath was warm and light. She was like a little kid sleeping. I couldn't sleep though. I kept staring at the ceiling, hoping my eyes would get heavy, but just when I started to lose myself, I would become aware that I had Cesar Trejo's ex-girlfriend naked on top of me. I imagined if I were him, what I would do to me. I didn't know anything about Iraq or what had happened over there. I just knew that he had loved Marie, this girl in my arms, and he loved her and lost her, and I had found her. That was all I knew about Cesar Trejo, that and his knuckles. I imagined us alone in the bathroom of Julio's bar, and instead of punching the reinforced wall, he was punching me, breaking my nose, my jaw, blood everywhere. My face no longer my face, my flesh just wet mud, absorbing his knuckles over and over.